It was a quiet morning in the small town of Meadowbrook, the kind of morning where the birdsong fills the air and the golden sunlight spills across the front porches of old wooden houses. Mr. Samuel Carter, a 90-year-old World War II veteran, was sitting on his porch as he did every morning. Samuel was a man of routine. At dawn, he'd brew his cup of coffee, sit in his rocking chair, and watch the world wake up. He was a humble man, rarely speaking of his time in the service, though the medals hanging on his living room wall told stories of courage and sacrifice. That morning, however, his peace was shattered. A loud rumbling sound filled the air, growing louder by the second. Samuel squinted down the road to see a group of bikers roaring into the neighborhood. Their motorcycles gleamed in the sun, and their laughter echoed as they pulled up across the street. At first, Samuel paid them no mind. He thought they were just passing through. But then, they stayed. They revved their engines, shouted crude jokes, and tossed trash onto the sidewalks. Samuel frowned but kept to himself. After all, he wasn't one to stir up trouble. But things escalated quickly. One of the bikers, a tall man with a thick beard and a leather jacket, spotted Samuel on the porch. "Hey, old man," he hollered, his voice cutting through the morning calm. "Got a problem with us?" Samuel shook his head, trying to avoid confrontation. "No problem here," he replied, his voice steady but firm. The biker smirked and sauntered across the street, joined by two others. They stood at the edge of Samuel's lawn, their presence intimidating. "You sure about that, Grandpa? You look like you're judging us," the man sneered. Samuel's heart sank. He wasn't afraid for himself. He'd faced far worse in his life, but he worried for the quiet neighborhood he'd called home for decades. He glanced at the medals inside through the window. They were a reminder of his resilience, of battles fought and won. And now it seemed another battle was at his doorstep. Samuel sat silently, gripping the armrests of his rocking chair. He could feel the tension in the air as the bikers began to laugh, mocking him. One even stepped onto his lawn, crushing the freshly trimmed grass beneath his heavy boots. "Maybe you should go inside, old man," the bearded biker said, his tone mocking. "This isn't your business." Samuel took a deep breath. "This is my home," he said calmly, his voice unwavering. "I've lived here longer than you've probably been alive." The words seemed to anger the biker, who took another step closer. "Big words for an old-timer," he growled. Samuel knew this wasn't going to end peacefully. He reached for the phone on the small table beside his chair. With hands that had steadied rifles decades ago, he dialed a number he hadn't used in years. The voice on the other end was warm, familiar, and full of respect. "Captain Carter?" "It's me," Samuel said simply. "I need a favor." 15 minutes later, the sound of motorcycles once again filled the street, but this time it wasn't the unruly gang. One by one they came. Veterans from the local American Legion post, men and women who had served alongside Samuel or in conflict since. Their motorcycles bore flags, American flags, POW MIA flags, and even a few unit banners. The bikers standing on Samuel's lawn froze as the veterans rolled in, parking their bikes in a neat line along the curb. The leader of the group, a burly man with a silver beard, stepped forward and saluted Samuel. "Captain Carter," he said with a nod, his voice firm but respectful. Samuel stood, his frail frame straight and proud. "Good to see you, Sergeant." The bearded biker looked around, his confidence draining. "What's this about?" he asked, his voice shaky. The silver-bearded veteran turned to him with a glare. "This man is a hero," he said, his voice booming. "He fought for this country, for your right to stand here. And you dare disrespect him?" The bikers exchanged nervous glances. One of them muttered, "We didn't know." "Well, now you do," the veteran snapped. "Pick up your trash, apologize, and leave. Now." The bikers scrambled to clean up the mess they'd made. They mumbled apologies, avoiding eye contact with Samuel and the veterans who stood like a wall of steel behind him. When the bikers finally roared off, tails between their legs, the street fell quiet again. The veterans stayed a while, sharing stories and laughter on Samuel's porch. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Samuel looked around at the group of men and women who had come to his aid. His heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice thick with emotion. One of the veterans, a younger woman with a kind smile, patted his shoulder. "You've done enough for us, Captain. It's the least we could do." That night, Samuel sat on his porch long after everyone had gone, the medals on his wall glinting faintly in the moonlight. He felt a deep sense of peace.